Donald Trump extended clemency to several high-profile white-collar criminals on Tuesday, pardoning one-time junk bond king Michael Milken and commuting the sentence of former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. Mr. Trump's actions represented his latest attempt to address what he sees as the unfairness of the U.S. criminal justice system following his acquittal last month at a Senate impeachment trial on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. In recent weeks, Mr. Trump has punished key witnesses in his impeachment probe, and denounced federal prosecutors who sought a 9-year sentence for Roger Stone, the president's friend who was convicted in a case stemming from Robert Mueller investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. Mr. Milken, 73, was sentenced in 1990 to 10 years in prison after pleading guilty to racketeering and securities fraud charges. He ultimately served 22 months in jail, after cooperating with federal investigators. The Securities and Exchange Commission permanently barred Mr. Milken from the securities industry in 1991, and he has spent the 3 decades working as a philanthropist. Mr. Milken's pardon was backed by high-profile figures in politics, media and finance, according to the White House. They included Sheldon Adelson, the casino owner and Republican donor, Rupert Murdoch, the media mogul, Elaine Chao, U.S. Transport Secretary and wife of Mitch McConnell, the U.S. Senate Majority Leader, David Rubenstein, Chairman of the Carlyle Group, Sean Parker, the Facebook investor, and Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney who headed the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan when it investigated Mr. Milken. Mr. Milken said in a statement that he and his wife Lori were very grateful to the president. The SEC had no immediate comment on Tuesday about whether the pardon would affect Mr. Milken's lifetime ban. But the regulator's civil actions are separate from criminal prosecutions pursued by the U.S. Department of Justice, even if they often occur in parallel. Kyle DeYoung, a partner at Cadwalader who was previously an SEC enforcement official, said a pardon of the criminal charges would probably not undo Mr. Milken's settlement with the regulator. "I don't think that will impact the SEC case against him." On Tuesday, Mr. Trump also commuted the sentences of 3 other people, and pardoned 6 more, including Bernard Kerik, the former New York City Police Commissioner while Mr. Giuliani was New York City Mayor, and Edward DeBartolo, a real estate magnate who owned the San Francisco 49ers football team for more than 2 decades. Blagojevich, a Democrat, was impeached and removed from office for corruption in 2009. He was later convicted by a federal jury on 17 counts of bribery, wire fraud, attempted extortion and conspiracy, and sentenced to 14 years in prison. Mr. Trump told reporters on Tuesday afternoon that he had commuted Blagojevich's sentence, saying, "He served 8 years in jail, a long time. He seems like a very nice person, don't know him," the president added, although Blagojevich had appeared as a contestant in 2010 on the Celebrity Apprentice television program, which Mr. Trump hosted. Some of the charges against Blagojevich related to him looking for money in exchange for an appointment to replace Barack Obama in the U.S. Senate. Mr. Obama, who was the junior senator from Illinois from 2005 to 2008, vacated his seat when he was elected president. Mr. Kerik served 4 years in jail for tax fraud and making false statements. He was indicted in 2007 and sentenced in 2010. He said in a statement on Tuesday afternoon, "There are no words to express my appreciation and gratitude to President Trump. Going to prison is like dying with your eyes open. Its aftermath of collateral consequences and the permanent loss of many of your civil and constitutional rights are personally devastating. Commuting Blagojevich's 14-year prison sentence means the former governor will be released from jail, but his criminal record will not be expunged. Blagojevich was prosecuted by Patrick Fitzgerald, then the U.S. Attorney in Chicago. Mr. Fitzgerald, now a partner at law firm Skadden, is a friend of James Comey, the former FBI director, and represented Mr. Comey after he was fired by Mr. Trump. The president referenced Mr. Fitzgerald and Mr. Comey in his remarks to reporters, saying, "It was a prosecution by the same people, Comey, Fitzpatrick, sick, the same group." Mr. Fitzgerald and the other prosecutors from the Blagojevich case said in a statement, "The fact remains that the former governor was convicted of very serious crimes. His prosecution serves as proof that elected officials who betray those they are elected to serve will be held to account." The judge in Mr. Stone's case said earlier on Tuesday that sentencing would go ahead as planned on Thursday of this week. When asked if he planned on pardoning Mr. Stone, Mr. Trump told reporters that he had not given it any thought, but his friend had been treated very unfairly. Asked whether Mr. Stone deserved to serve time in prison, Mr. Trump said, "You're going to have to see what happens." Earlier on Tuesday, Hogan Gidley, deputy White House press secretary, announced that Mr. Trump had pardoned Mr. DiBartolo, who pleaded guilty to corruption charges in 1998. Mr. DiBartolo did not go to prison, but was given 2 years probation, paid a $1 million fine and was suspended for a year by the National Football League. Former NFL great Jim Brown spoke to reporters at the White House on Tuesday, saying, "I take my hat off to Donald Trump for what he did." Quote,